Dae-young had 3 seconds to make an impossible choice. Behind him, a school group of alien children trapped against a sealed door. In front of him, a 3-meter core, the galaxy's apex predator, midnight scales gleaming, crystalline teeth dripping, advancing with calculated hunger. He had no weapons, no backup, just a toolkit, a golden retriever named Barum, and a stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. The station alarm screamed. The children screamed louder. The silver-skinned girl at the front trembling but defiant locked eyes with him for a heartbeat. Everyone knew the truth. Humans don't survive core attacks. No one does. But Dae-young wasn't running. He looked down at his dog and gave the command that would change everything. "Barum, speak." The core's head snapped toward them. In that frozen moment, as foam filled the corridor and chaos erupted, one question burned through the station. What happens when a species that befriends predators faces the galaxy's worst nightmare? The trading station at the edge of the Vex cluster hummed with the sounds of 1,000 different species conducting business. But Dae-young barely noticed anymore. After 3 years working as a cargo handler on Station 17, the bizarre had become mundane. He wiped sweat from his forehead and patted the shaggy golden retriever sitting beside him. "Good boy, Barum," he murmured, and the dog's tail thumped against the metal floor. Barum had been his only companion since leaving Earth, a connection to home among the stars. Most aliens gave them a wide berth, which suited Dae-young fine. He'd learned that while humanity's admission into the Galactic Council had been historic, actually living among alien species meant dealing with their peculiar fears and prejudices. The fact that humans kept predators as companions apparently violated every instinct most civilized species possessed. The alarm began as a low wail that quickly built to a shriek. Dae-young's communication device crackled to life with panicked voices in a dozen languages. "Breach in Sector 9. Core hunters loose. All personnel evacuate immediately." His blood ran cold. The core were the galaxy's apex predators, massive reptilian creatures whose species had terrorized dozens of worlds before being brought under control through centuries of careful management. 3 were kept on the station for a wealthy collector, supposedly in unbreakable containments, apparently not unbreakable enough. Dae-young grabbed his toolkit and ran toward Sector 9 instead of away. His supervisor, a nervous insectoid named Click, had mentioned earlier that a school group was touring that area. The corridors emptied around him as everyone with sense fled in the opposite direction. Barum loped beside him, sensing his urgency, a concerned whine building in the dog's throat. "I know, buddy," Dae-young panted, "but we can't leave kids there." He heard the screaming before he rounded the corner. The corridor ahead was chaos. A core, easily 3 meters tall with midnight scales and teeth like daggers, had cornered a group of young aliens against a sealed blast door. Their teacher lay motionless nearby. The children were various species, but terror looked the same on every face. At the front of the group, trying to shield the others, stood a girl who looked almost human, except for the silver patterns that glowed faintly on her skin and the extra joint in each limb. She couldn't have been more than 20 cycles old, and she was trembling but refusing to run. The core advanced slowly, savoring its prey's fear. Dae-young's mind raced. He had no weapons. Station regulations forbade them for ordinary workers. He had his toolkit, his wits, and Barum. Against the galaxy's most feared predator, it should have been laughably inadequate. But humanity hadn't climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by accepting defeat. "Barum," he said quietly. "Speak." The dog barked, a sharp commanding sound that echoed off the metal walls. The core froze, its head swiveling toward them. In that instant of distraction, Dae-young threw his heavy wrench at the nearest fire suppression panel. It shattered in a shower of sparks and the corridor filled with foam and alarm klaxons. The core hissed in confusion, momentarily blinded. "Run!" Dae-young shouted at the children. The silver-skinned girl hesitated for only a moment before herding the others toward a side passage. But the core's hearing was excellent. It lunged toward the sound of their fleeing footsteps, and Dae-young knew they wouldn't make it. "Moram guard!" The golden retriever launched himself at the core with a snarl that would have made his wolf ancestors proud. 70 pounds of dog hit the core's flank, teeth finding purchase in the softer scales near its leg joint. The predator shrieked, a sound of pure outrage. Nothing challenged a core. Nothing was stupid enough to attack one. Baram clearly hadn't received that memo. The core spun, trying to snap at this impossible creature that dared bite it. Baram released and darted away, barking furiously. Dane grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it directly into the core's face. The creature reared back, clawing at its eyes. "Come on, boy!" They ran behind them. The core's roar shook the corridor. Dae-young's heart hammered as he pelted after the children, Baram at his heels. They burst through a maintenance door and he slammed it shut, engaging the magnetic locks. The door buckled immediately as the core hit it from the other side. The metal shrieked but held. The children huddled in the maintenance corridor, eyes wide. The silver-skinned girl stood slightly apart, staring at Dae-young and Baram with an expression he couldn't read. "You saved us," she said in perfect standard. Her voice was melodic, each word carefully enunciated. "You attacked the core with a pet. That's impossible." Dae-young leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. "I'm human. We specialize in impossible." The door shuttered again. "We need to move. That won't hold forever. Can you get these kids to a safe room?" She nodded slowly. "The emergency shelter is 2 corridors over. But you're coming with us, yes?" He shook his head. "I need to lead it away from you. Make sure you all get clear." Her luminous eyes widened. "That's death. You understand this? A core will kill you and your animal. Maybe." Dae-young scratched Baram's ears, and the dog leaned into his hand, tail still wagging despite everything. "But he's not an animal. He's my friend. And we both signed up to help people, even if the people are a bit more alien than we expected." The girl made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "I'm Hannah," she said suddenly. "House of Lear, 3rd daughter. If you survive, find me. I owe you a life debt." The door groaned, metal beginning to tear. "Go!" Dae-young shouted. Hannah grabbed the youngest children and ran, the others following. Dae waited until they rounded the corner, then opened the maintenance panel beside the door. Station systems were standardized, and he'd spent 3 years learning every trick. He rewired the door's controls to open on a 30-second delay. Then he and Baram ran in the opposite direction. The children had gone. The door shrieked open behind them. The core's roar told him it had taken the bait. Station 17 was a maze of corridors, storage bays, and maintenance tunnels. Dae-young used every shortcut he knew, trying to lead the core toward the cargo base where security teams would be setting up containment fields. Baram stayed close, no longer barking but alert to every sound. The dog trusted him completely, even running toward danger. The weight of that trust threatened to crush Dae-young's chest. They skidded around a corner and came face to face with another core. Dae-young's stomach dropped. 2 of them. Of course there were 2. The creatures hunted in pairs. This one was larger than the first, with scars marking its scales. An alpha. It opened its jaws in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. Dae-young heard claws scraping metal behind them as the first core caught up. They were trapped. Baram growled, planting himself between Dae-young and the nearer threat. The dog's hackles were raised, making him look bigger, fiercer. But against 2 core, it was like a house cat facing tigers. Dae-young's hands trembled as he raised his last tool, a plasma cutter designed for opening cargo containers. It would be useless against the core's armored hide, but he wasn't going down without trying. The alpha core lunged. A blast of energy punched through its shoulder, spinning the creature sideways. More shots followed, and suddenly the corridor was full of station security in combat armor. The core behind them screeched and tried to flee, but containment fields snapped into place, trapping both creatures in shimmering energy walls. The fight was over. Asterisk. De-Young's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the deck, and Baram immediately climbed into his lap, licking his face. "Good boy," he whispered, wrapping his arms around the dog. "Such a good boy." A security officer approached, removing her helmet. She was Velen, tall and crystalline. "You led them here on purpose," she said. It wasn't a question. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Seemed like the best option at the time, De-Young managed. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "The children are safe. All of them." The officer crouched down to his level. "One of them is very insistent about speaking with you. Says she owes you a life debt. That's serious business among the Lear." De-Young looked up at her. "The girl with the silver markings? Hannah? Third daughter of one of the most powerful houses in 3 sectors." The officer's expression was difficult to read on her alien features, but he thought she might be amused. "You certainly don't do anything halfway, do you, human?" They took him to medical for evaluation despite his protests. The station's chief physician, a blob-like creature whose name De-Young could never pronounce, declared him physically fine but likely in shock. They wanted to keep him for observation. He refused until they agreed to let Baram stay with him. The dog settled on the bed beside him. Warm and solid and real. Hannah arrived while he was arguing with a nurse about whether humans really needed that much water. She swept into the room like she owned it, which given her family's wealth, she might actually own part of the station. The silver patterns on her skin glowed brighter when she was agitated, he noticed. Right now she looked like she'd been drawn with lightning. "Out," she said to the nurse, who took one look at her and fled. Hannah turned to De-Young and for a long moment just stared at him. He suddenly became very aware that he was shirtless, covered in bruises and foam residue, with his hair sticking up in every direction. Not exactly impressive. Baram, however, showed no such embarrassment. The dog's tail wagged, and he stretched his neck toward her hopefully. "He wants you to pet him," De-Young said quietly. Hannah flinched. "It's safe? He won't attack me. Baram? He's the gentlest dog I've ever met. He only acted aggressive to protect those kids. And me." De-Young scratched behind the dog's ears. "Dogs are predators, yeah, but they evolved alongside humans. We've been partners for thousands of years. They protect us. We protect them. It's just how it works." Slowly, carefully, Hannah extended one long-fingered hand. Baram sniffed it delicately, then licked her fingers. She gasped, pulling back, but then a smile broke across her face. "It's warm. And soft. I thought it would be cold, like a core. Everything about dogs is different from core," De-Young said. "Baram means wind in my language. I named him that because he was always running everywhere when he was a puppy, like he was chasing something invisible." Hannah sat in the chair beside his bed, her movements careful and graceful. "Among my people, life debts are sacred. You risked everything to save me and the children in my care. I was supervising them because I'm training to be a teacher. If they had died, it would have been my failure, my shame. Instead, they live because you and your companion faced down the galaxy's most feared predators. We were just doing what needed to be done," De-Young said, uncomfortable with the weight she was giving his actions. "That's what makes it remarkable." Hannah leaned forward, her silver markings pulsing gently. "Most species would have fled. Self-preservation is the first instinct of all civilized beings. But humans and your companion species apparently missed that lesson. The galaxy is still trying to understand your kind. You've been part of the council for a decade, but you're still a mystery. Ziyong shrugged. We're not that complicated. We look after each other. Humans, dogs, whatever. If someone needs help, you help. That's it. That's not how the galaxy works, Hana said softly. Help is transactional. Alliances are calculated. Even families operate on complex webs of obligation and benefit. But you attacked a core for strangers. I want to understand that. I want to understand you. Something in her voice made Dae-young look at her more carefully. The glow of her markings had shifted from agitation to something else, something warmer. You want to understand humans, or you want to understand me specifically? Both? She smiled, and it transformed her face. I have 3 months left on the station before I return home for my qualification ceremonies. My family will want to honor you formally for saving me, which means tedious parties and speeches. But before all that political nonsense, I'd like to simply know you. If you're willing. Baram chose that moment to hop off the bed and trot over to Hannah, plopping his head in her lap with a contented sigh. She laughed, a musical sound, and tentatively stroked his fur. I think your friend has already decided we should be friends, she said. Baram's an excellent judge of character, Dae-young agreed. He found himself smiling. Okay, 3 months. Let's see if humans are really as mysterious as everyone thinks. The next day, Dae-young was cleared to return to his quarters. He half expected yesterday's encounter to fade into station gossip and memory. Instead, Hana appeared at his door during his rest cycle, carrying a container of something that smelled spicy and unfamiliar. I brought food from my world, she announced, inviting herself in. If we're to be friends, you should try Lear cuisine. His quarters were tiny, barely room for a bunk, a chair, and Baram's bed. Hannah didn't seem to notice or care about the cramped space. She sat cross-legged on his floor and opened the container, revealing something that looked like purple noodles with crystalline vegetables. It's safe for human digestion, she assured him. I checked with medical. They ate, and she asked him questions. Where on earth was he from? Why did he come to space? What did he miss most about home? Dae-young found himself talking more than he had in months, telling her about growing up in Bizen, about the ocean and the mountains, about getting accepted into the Colonial Service Program and choosing Station 17 because it was as far from everything as he could get. You were running from something, Hannah observed. Someone, he admitted. A girl I thought I'd marry. Turned out she had different ideas. Seemed easier to leave the planet than deal with seeing her everywhere. Hannah nodded slowly. I understand that kind of pain. There was someone in my house, another student. We were close. But my family has expectations about who I should bond with, and he wasn't suitable. Politics. She said the word like a curse. Everything in my life is politics. Is that why you want to be a teacher? Dae-young asked. To escape it? To give others what I never had. Choice. Her markings flickered. Lear children are assigned their paths before they can speak. I was fortunate that my path aligned with something I actually wanted. But I've seen too many crushed by expectations they never asked for. They talked until Baram got tired of being ignored and pushed his way between them, demanding attention. Hannah laughed and buried her fingers in his fur. I never imagined a predator could be so affectionate, she said. On my world, we have creatures that hunt, but we avoid them. The idea of bringing one into your home, of loving it and having it love you back, it's completely foreign to us. Dogs aren't just predators, Dae-young explained. They're pack animals. They evolved to work in groups, to form bonds, to communicate. When humans and dogs partnered up, it was two social species recognizing something in each other. We understood loyalty and cooperation. We still do. Loyalty, Hana repeated. My family speaks of loyalty constantly, but it's always conditional. Loyal to the house, loyal to the clan, loyal to agreements. Your loyalty seems different, simpler. It's not really about being simple, Dae-young said. It's about choosing who matters to you and then showing up for them. Always. No matter what. Hannah's markings brightened. I think I'm beginning to understand why the galaxy finds humans so unsettling. You don't calculate cost. You don't measure benefit. You just act. We calculate plenty, Dae-young said with a laugh. But yeah, sometimes you have to trust your gut and do what feels right. Overthinking can get you killed. She visited again the next day and the day after that. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she brought questions about Earth and humanity. Sometimes she just sat and watched him work on his personal projects or play with Baram. She was fascinated by how Dae-young trained the dog with simple words and hand signals. How they communicated with looks and gestures as much as language. You speak to each other without speaking. She marveled one day as she watched Baram respond to Dae-young's subtle body language. You learn to read each other, Dae-young agreed. I know what different barks mean. I know his moods from how he holds his tail. He knows when I'm stressed or sad. It's partnership. Hannah was quiet for a moment. I think humans might have discovered something the rest of the galaxy lost, if we ever had it. This kind of connection. It's rare even between members of the same species for us. Over the weeks, Hana began bringing him to parts of the station he'd never accessed. There were gardens maintained by Cloran colonists where plants from a dozen worlds grew under carefully controlled atmospheres. There were observation decks where they watched ships come and go, and she taught him the names of alien constellations. There were music halls where species gathered to share their arts. And though much of it was strange to his human ears, Hannah's delight made a beautiful dot in return. He showed her the working heart of the station. The massive cargo bays where goods from across the galaxy were sorted and shipped. The recycling plants that kept the station's air and water clean. The maintenance tunnels where workers of every species kept the ancient station functioning. She was shocked by how hard the work was. How little recognition these essential workers received. This is a side of station life my family never shows me, she admitted as they watched a crew of Delvan workers repair a critical coolant pump. We see the markets, the diplomatic halls, the entertainment districts. We don't see the people who make it all possible. Every civilization runs on the people no one notices, Dae-young said. That's the same everywhere, I think. Hannah looked at him with an expression he was learning to recognize. It was the look she got when he'd said something that challenged her understanding of the universe. Her markings would dim slightly, as if she was turning her energy inward to process new thoughts. You see things very clearly, she said. No pretense, no elaborate social games. Just truth. I'm a cargo handler from Earth, he said with a laugh. I don't know how to play elaborate social games. Don't underestimate yourself. She touched his arm briefly. The first time she'd initiated physical contact beyond petting Baram. You have a wisdom my people spend lifetimes failing to achieve. The touch lasted only a moment, but Dae-young felt it long after. He was becoming aware that his feelings for Hana were shifting beyond friendship. The way his heart jumped when she arrived at his door. The way her laugh made him smile even hours later. The way he found himself thinking about her during his work shifts, wondering what she was doing, whether she was thinking of him too. But she was the third daughter of a powerful house, and he was nobody. The daughter of a noble family and a cargo handler. It was a romance from a cheap novel, impossible and inadvisable. He tried to push the feelings down, to just enjoy the friendship they had. Then came the day she asked him to teach Baram a trick. They were in one of the smaller gardens, and she had a treat she'd gotten from a food vendor. Show me how you teach him, she said. Dae-young demonstrated the basic process. Get the dog's attention, show what you want, reward success. Hana tried to get Baram to sit, speaking the command clearly. The dog looked at her with his head tilted, confused. She tried again. Nothing. She looked at Dae-young in frustration. He doesn't know he should listen to you yet, Dae-young explained. Watch. He gave the command, and Baram sat immediately. Now you try, but I'll stand with you. He moved behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence. Her markings flickered, brightening. Tell him to sit, he said softly. Sit, Hana commanded, and this time Baram obeyed. She gasped in delight and gave him the treat. The dog's tail wagged furiously. He did it. You did it, Dae-young corrected. He knows you're with me, so he trusts your commands now. Keep practicing, and soon he'll listen to you, even when I'm not here. Hana turned to look at him, and he realized how close they were standing. He could see the intricate patterns of her markings, like silver rivers flowing beneath translucent skin. Her eyes were large and luminous, a shade of blue-green he'd never seen on any Earth ocean. Dae-young, she said quietly. I need to tell you something. His heart hammered. Okay, my family has been sending messages. They want me to return home early to meet a potential bonding partner. It's a political arrangement, one that would strengthen our house's position. My mother says I've indulged my teaching fantasy long enough. Her markings dimmed. I've been refusing, but I can't hold them off much longer. They'll send someone to collect me if I don't agree. When? The word came out rougher than he intended. 2 weeks. Maybe less. She looked away. I don't want to go. For the first time in my life, I've found something real. Friendship without calculation. Connection without contracts. You and Baram, you've shown me what life could be like without all the political games. And I don't want to lose that. Dae-young knew he should stay quiet. Should let her go. She had responsibilities, a life he couldn't be part of. But the words came out anyway. Then don't go. It's not that simple. Why not? He moved to face her. You said you want choice. Here's your choice. Stay. Keep teaching. Build the life you actually want instead of the one they planned for you. My family would disown me, Hana whispered. I'd have nothing. No resources, no position, no future in their society. You'd have yourself, Dae-young countered. Isn't that worth something? Her markings blazed bright enough to light the garden. You really believe that, don't you? That being true to yourself matters more than everything else. I know leaving Earth and coming here was the best decision I ever made, he said. Even though it meant giving up everything familiar. Because I got to choose my own path. Yeah, it's been hard. Yeah, I'm broke and work a job most people don't respect. But it's my life. My choice. Hana reached up and touched his face, her fingers cool against his skin. You are remarkable, Dae-young of Earth. You don't even realize how extraordinary your perspective is. I'm really not, he said, but his breath caught as she stepped closer. You attacked a core to save strangers, she said. You show kindness without expecting reward. You offer friendship without contracts. You speak truth even when politeness would serve you better. And you've made me question everything I thought I knew about the galaxy and my place in it. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw. That's remarkable. Hana, he breathed. She kissed him. It was tentative at first, uncertain. Her people expressed affection differently, and human kissing was foreign to her. But she learned quickly, and when she pulled back, her markings glowed so brightly he had to blink. Was that right? She asked. That was perfect, Dae-young said, and kissed her again. They sat in the garden for hours after that, talking about possibilities. Could she really stay? What would it mean to cut ties with her family? Where would she live? How would she support herself? The questions were endless, and they had few answers. But for the first time, Hana seemed hopeful rather than resigned. "I'll need to send a formal refusal to my family," she said eventually. "That will cause significant trouble. My mother will be furious. My house will see it as a betrayal. Will you be safe?" Dae-young asked, worried. "Physically? Yes. The Lear don't harm family, even disgraced family. But socially, professionally, I'll be an outcast." She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "It's terrifying, and I want to do it anyway. Does that make sense?" "Complete sense," he assured her. They were so focused on each other that they didn't notice the figure watching from the garden entrance until it spoke. "How touching," said a cold voice in Lear. "The third daughter has found a pet human to match her pet ambitions." Hana stiffened. "Calyx," she said, and Dae-young heard real fear in her voice. The man who entered the garden was Lear, his markings a harsh silver white against midnight skin. He moved with predatory grace, and his eyes, when they fixed on Dae-young, were utterly cold. "Your family sent me to retrieve you, Hana. They suspected you might have gotten confused about your obligations. I see their concerns were justified." "I'm not confused," Hana said, standing. Her voice shook but held firm. "I'm refusing the bonding arrangement. I'm staying on the station to complete my teaching certification. Impossible." Calyx smiled, and it was a terrible thing. "Your mother has already announced the bonding. To refuse now would humiliate our house. You will come home and fulfill your duty." "No," Hana said simply. Calyx's expression darkened. "Don't be foolish, child. You think this human pet will protect you. You think playing at independence changes who you are. You were born to serve the house. That is all you are." Dae-young stood, moving beside Hana. Maram, who had been sleeping, got to his feet as well, sensing the tension. "She said no," Dae-young said quietly. "Time for you to leave." Calyx laughed. "The pet speaks. How amusing." He looked at Hana. "This is what you're throwing away your future for? A human cargo handler who doesn't understand the first thing about civilization. You're pathetic. I'd rather be pathetic and free than honored and owned." Hana shot back. The Lear man's hand moved to his belt, and Dae-young saw the weapon holstered there. "You will come with me," Calyx said, his voice dropping to a dangerous purr. "Peacefully, or I will file a complaint with station security about the human who has been harassing you. I understand he has a history of violence, yes? Attacking a corps? I'm sure I can make the case that he's unstable, dangerous. They'll deport him at minimum. At worst, imprison him for your protection." Hana's markings flared with rage. "You wouldn't dare. Watch me." Calyx pulled out a communication device. "One call, Hana. That's all it takes. Your human pet loses everything. His job, his freedom, maybe that animal he's so attached to. Dangerous predators aren't allowed on stations if their owners are criminals." Dae-young felt Hana start to crumble beside him. She'd go with Calyx to protect him, he realized. She'd sacrifice her own freedom to save him from consequences he'd never regret facing. "Wait," he said. "Dae-young." "No," Hana whispered, but he wasn't talking to her. "Baram," he said quietly. "Guard." The golden retriever placed himself between them and Calyx, not growling yet but clearly on alert. The Lear man sneered. "Your pet animal doesn't frighten me." "Maybe he should," Dae-young said. "You're threatening people I care about. Baram takes that personally. And before you file any complaints, remember this. I saved the third daughter of House Lear and a dozen other children from the core incident. Station security loves me. The Galactic Council gave me a civilian valor citation. Every media outlet in this sector ran stories about the brave human and his heroic dog." He stepped forward, and his voice was harder than Hana had ever heard it. "You want to play political games? Fine, But you're not the only one with leverage. Go ahead and try to frame me. I'll tell everyone how House Lear sent an enforcer to kidnap their daughter when she exercised her legal right to refuse a bonding. Let's see how that plays for your house's reputation. Calrix's markings darkened with fury. You dare threaten us? I'm not threatening anyone, Dae-young said calmly. I'm just pointing out that this situation is more complicated than you thought. Hannah isn't some helpless asset you can collect. She's an adult with rights, and she's under my protection now. Both legal protection as a station resident and personal protection as someone who really cares about her. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to tell her family that she's staying. And if they have a problem with that, they can file a formal complaint through proper channels instead of sending thugs. The silence stretched. Calrix looked between them, calculating. Finally, he straightened. This isn't over, he said coldly. House Lear does not forget insults. You've made powerful enemies today. Human. Wouldn't be the first time, Dae-young replied. After Calrix left, Hannah collapsed into Dae-young's arms, shaking. He'll make good on his threats, she said. My family won't let this go. They'll find ways to hurt you, to make your life on this station unbearable. Let them try. He held her close, feeling her markings pulse against his chest. I meant what I said. You're under my protection. Both human stubbornness and dog loyalty. We're pretty hard to shake. She laughed through what might have been tears. I don't deserve you. You absolutely do, he said firmly. You deserve choice and freedom and a life you actually want. Everyone does. Over the next days, they made plans. Hannah sent her formal refusal to her family, a carefully worded message that invoked her legal rights under Galactic Council law while trying to minimize the insult to her house. The response was swift and brutal. Her family assets were frozen, her access to house resources cut off, her name struck from official records. She was, effectively, no longer a daughter of House Lear. Dae-young found her crying in the garden where they'd first kissed. He sat beside her silently, and Baram put his head in her lap. I knew it would happen, she said, her voice thick. But knowing and experiencing are different. They really did it. I'm no one now. You're not no one, Dae-young said gently. You're Hannah. You're training to be a teacher. You're the bravest person I know. And you're not alone. I have nothing, she whispered. No credits, no home, no family. You have me. He took her hand. I know my quarters are tiny, but we'll make it work. You can share my rations until you get your teaching job. Baram already loves you. And hey, now you're free to choose your own path. It's terrifying, yeah, but it's also kind of amazing. She looked at him with those luminous eyes. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. Taking me in, protecting me from my family, it's not your responsibility. You're not a responsibility, Dae-young said. You're someone I care about. That's different. Humans are weird about this stuff. When we care about someone, we show up for them. It's not transactional. It's not calculated. It just is. Your species is insane, Hannah said. But she was smiling through her tears. Completely, he agreed. But we're also really good at facing impossible situations and somehow making it work. Just ask Baram about the core incident. The dog's tail thumped at hearing his name, and Hannah laughed. It was a shaky sound, but real. Okay, she said. Okay, let's try this impossible thing. Moving her into his quarters was an exercise in creative space management. Hannah owned almost nothing, having left most of her possessions when she fled her family's diplomatic suite. But even her few items made the tiny room feel crowded. They worked together to reorganize, installing a second bunk, rearranging storage. Baram supervised with great interest. occasionally offering helpful suggestions by sitting directly in their way. "This is cozy," Hana said diplomatically when they finished. "It's tiny," Dae-young corrected. "But it's home. Our home now." She turned to him, her markings glowing softly in the dim light. "I like the sound of that." That night, they lay in their bunks talking quietly until sleep took them. Baram sprawled on the floor between them, snoring gently. It wasn't perfect, but it was real and chosen and theirs. The weeks that followed were hard. Hana's teaching application was initially rejected, her family's influence reaching even into station bureaucracy. But Dae-young helped her file an appeal, citing council regulations about discrimination. They also reached out to the parents of the children she'd been supervising during the core incident. Those families rallied around her, writing testimonials about her dedication and skill. Meanwhile, Calrix's threatened consequences began to materialize. Dae-young was assigned to worse shifts, given the hardest jobs, passed over for promotions. His supervisor Click apologized privately, but admitted there was pressure from above to make the human's life difficult. Dae-young just shrugged and kept working. "Doesn't it bother you?" Hana asked one night as he came home exhausted from a double shift. "Sure," he admitted. "But I've been poor and tired before. I can handle it. What I couldn't handle is knowing you were trapped in a life you didn't choose. That would bother me a lot more." She kissed him then, deeply and thoroughly. "I love you," she said. "I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but I do. You've shown me what love actually looks like, and it's nothing like what my people pretend it is. It's choosing someone every day. It's showing up even when it's hard. It's you. I love you too," Dae-young said, and meant it with everything he had. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. The story of Hana's situation reached Galactic Council media outlets, and suddenly they were at the center of a scandal. A powerful family trying to force a bonding, a daughter choosing freedom, a human hero protecting her against political pressure. It was perfect for news cycles, and journalists descended on Station 17. Dae-young hated the attention, but Hana handled it brilliantly. She gave interviews explaining her dream of teaching, her belief that all children deserved education free from political manipulation. She spoke about human culture and the value of choice, about learning from other species' strengths. She made her personal story universal. Public opinion swung heavily in her favor. Suddenly, House Lear was the villain, their actions scrutinized across the galaxy. The pressure became too much, and they released a statement washing their hands of her entirely. She was free, truly free, but also truly alone, except for Dae-young and Baram. Her teaching application was approved. A coalition of parents hired her to teach their children, impressed by her dedication during the core crisis. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough. She and Dae-young began saving for larger quarters, dreaming of a future together. 6 months after Calrix's confrontation, they were sitting in their tiny home when an official message arrived. The Galactic Council wanted to recognize Dae-young's actions during the core incident with a formal ceremony. More importantly, they wanted Hana to speak about educational reform at a council session. "They want to use us," Hana said, reading the message. "Turn us into symbols." "Probably," Dae-young agreed. "But maybe that's not entirely bad. You can actually push for the reforms you care about. And if they want to give me a medal for doing what anyone decent would do, fine. We can use the attention to help other people break free from situations like yours." She looked at him with such love that his breath caught. "How do you always see the best path forward?" "I don't," he said honestly. "I just figure if we're going to be symbols anyway, might as well be symbols that actually mean something." The ceremony was held on a council station, much grander than their home. Dae-young wore formal clothes that felt uncomfortable, and Hana wore traditional Lear robes that she'd modified to reflect her new independent status. Baram came too, groomed until his golden fur shone. The dog was remarkably well-behaved, sitting calmly beside Dae-young throughout the speeches. When they called him forward to receive his citation, Dae-young brought Baram with him. "This dog is why those children are alive," he said to the assembled council members. "Humans brought our partner species to the stars because they're part of who we are. Maybe the galaxy thinks it's weird or dangerous to keep predators as companions. But partnership with dogs taught humanity that different species can work together, can love each other, can be stronger together than apart. That's a lesson worth sharing." The applause was polite but confused. He didn't care. He'd said what needed saying. Hana's speech was more diplomatic but equally powerful. She talked about educational systems that prioritized political loyalty over individual growth. She proposed reforms that would give all species children more choice in their futures. She spoke beautifully, and Dae-young felt his heart swell with pride. Afterward, at the reception, a dozen different species approached them. Some wanted to hear about the core incident. Others wanted to discuss Hana's reforms. A few just wanted to meet the famous human and his dog. Dae-young answered questions patiently, and Baram accepted pets from brave aliens with his usual good nature. "You're a natural ambassador," a crystalline delegate told Dae-young. "Have you considered applying for diplomatic service?" "I'm a cargo handler," Dae-young said. "I like the work. It's honest." The delegate looked confused but moved on. Hana appeared at his side, slipping her hand into his. "Ready to go home?" she asked. "More than ready," he admitted. They left the grand ceremony and returned to Station 17, to their tiny quarters and simple life. They stopped by the garden where they'd first kissed, Baram running ahead to chase something only he could see. "Do you ever regret it?" Dae-young asked. "Giving up everything?" Hana turned to him, her markings glowing with contentment. "I didn't give up everything. I gave up a comfortable prison. What I have now is so much better. I have work I love. I have freedom to choose my own path. I have you and Baram and a future I'm building with my own hands. How can I regret that?" "Your family might come around eventually," he offered. "Maybe, maybe not." She shrugged. "Either way, I've learned something important from humans and dogs. Family is who shows up for you, who chooses you every day. By that definition, you're my family now. You and an overly friendly golden retriever." Baram returned and flopped at their feet, panting happily. Dae-young scratched the dog's ears. "Best family anyone could ask for," he said. They stayed in the garden as the station's artificial day cycle faded to night. Around them, 1,000 species went about their lives, conducting business, building empires, playing their political games. But in that small corner of space, 2 people and a dog had found something the galaxy had forgotten: simple connection, freely given and freely received. The galaxy thinks humans are terrifying because we keep predators as pets, Hana said thoughtfully. "But I think the real reason we unsettle everyone is because you demonstrate that a different way is possible. That relationships don't have to be transactional. That loyalty doesn't require contracts. That love can exist without calculation." "You give us too much credit," Dae-young said. "We're just as messed up as everyone else. Maybe." She leaned against him. "But you brought dogs to the stars. You taught a spoiled diplomat's daughter that freedom is worth fighting for. You faced down core and political threats and a galaxy that doesn't understand you. I'd say that's pretty remarkable." "We faced them together," he corrected. "Together," she agreed. Years later, when they told their story, people would focus on the dramatic parts: the core attack, the confrontation with Calrix, Hana's break from her family. But Dae-young always thought the real story was simpler than that. It was about a lonely cargo handler and a trapped diplomat who found each other against impossible odds. It was about a dog who demonstrated that different species could build bonds stronger than any political alliance. It was about choosing love and freedom even when the cost was high. And it was about how sometimes the thing that terrifies the galaxy the most is the possibility that there's a better way to live. They built a life together on Station 17. Hannah's teaching program grew, and Dae-young eventually was promoted despite the earlier political pressure. They saved enough to move to larger quarters, where they adopted a second dog, a rescue from a cargo ship. Baram taught the new dog everything important. That humans give the best scratches. That Hannah's cooking is worth begging for. And that love freely given is the greatest treasure in the galaxy. Sometimes, late at night, Hannah would trace the patterns of her markings in the mirror and marvel at how far she'd come. From a daughter of House Lear to a teacher building a new life with a human partner. From someone who feared predators to someone who slept soundly with two dogs snoring beside her bed. From a person whose life was planned before birth to someone writing her own story. And Dae-young, watching her, would think about the strange paths that led people together. How saving a stranger in a crisis could change everything. How the galaxy's fear of humanity's closest companions had led him to the love of his life. How sometimes the bravest thing anyone could do was simply choose what mattered and refuse to let go. "What are you thinking?" Hannah asked, catching his reflection in the mirror. "That I'm glad the Corps broke containment that day," he admitted. Terrible reason to be glad, but true anyway. She laughed and came to sit beside him. "Me too. Although, let's not tell the children I teach that near-death experiences are great for meeting people." "Probably wise," he agreed. They sat together in comfortable silence. Two beings from different worlds who'd found common ground. Outside their window, the stars turned slowly, vast and cold and indifferent. But here, in this small room on an aging station, there was warmth and choice and love, and two dogs who'd helped change how the galaxy understood humanity. Simply by being exactly what they'd always been. Loyal, protective, and devoted to the strange bipeds who brought them to the stars. That was the real story. Not about terror or dominance or proving humanity's strength. It was about partnership, about the bonds that transcended species and politics and fear. It was about looking at the galaxy's apex predators and saying, "I have something better," then proving it with every small choice and daily kindness. The galaxy would learn. Slowly, perhaps, but learn it would. That the species who brought dogs to space had understood something fundamental about survival and joy, that we're stronger together, that love builds what fear destroys, and that sometimes the fiercest protector is the friend who chooses to stand beside you. Human and Lear, dog and human. Different species bound by choice and love. In the end, that was what truly terrified the galaxy. Not humanity's predators, but humanity's heart.